Alright, today we are talking about another cameo for use with Shang Tsung. On the roster today is Frost. Frost is an all summons cameo. She has no ambush moves at all, but she has 4 moves, which is a little bit above average, as you can see. We have Ice Crash, Frosty's Revenge, Snowflakes, and Ice Carpet. We're going to go over what each of these moves do. We're going to talk about how they fit into Shang Tsung's game plan and what weird things they add to Shang specifically, and just what they do in general. So, none of these moves are particularly complicated, but we are going to start with Ice Crash, which is her neutral cameo. There it is. And as you can see, it has a relatively quick cooldown. Not the quickest in the game or anything, but certainly not slow. And it is a mid-hitting attack that does 60 damage on a hit, or 17.5 chip damage on block. It has okay reach. As you can see, we can hit from a fair distance over here. Not quite here. Maybe not quite round start. Take a look. Yeah, not quite round start, but if we move a little bit closer, then we can hit. And it has quite a bit of pushback on it. So, one of the primary uses of this move for many characters is to go into a block string, get them pushed back right there. And as you can see, it's +4 on block. So, the unfortunate thing about this is that this is a bad distance for Shang Tsung. Can't sweep, can't overhead, and pretty much all we can do is this low, and that low is 19 frames, so that +4 isn't really helping us at all. Basically, when our opponent blocks this move as Shang, they've reset the neutral. So, this is kind of one of the cursed distances for Shang. He has a couple of cursed distances. One is between his far ground skull and his mid ground skull. There's a space where an opponent can stand and you can't hit them with any ground skull. That's a cursed distance for Shang Tsung. And about round start and a little bit closer is also a cursed distance for Shang Tsung, where sweep doesn't work, overhead doesn't work, our T-Rex arms on our fast moves are not reaching, and basically all we have is forward 3 as old Shang. So, this move has a few properties that make it weird for Shang where it might be alright for other people. Like I said, it creates this bad spacing. The +4 at this spacing basically just means 0. You're back to neutral. If your opponent has a long-range move, it might even be worse than that, because our long-range move is 19 frames, and most moves that reach this far are a little bit quicker. So, not an ideal distance. It hits mid, which is good. It's not something you can just crouch, get away from. It is possible, if you shorten strings, to do something like this, and then you're actually in sweep range. But if you actually go through with your full block string that you would normally do as Shang, where this claw comes out, then you're at curse distance. If you just use the bows, then you're at sweep distance, which is much better for you. And if we do that, we're also in overhead distance if we're in sweep distance. So that's one of Shang's main mix-ups, is the overhead, kick, or sweep. We have a low crush and we have a high crush. So, you can make this work. And if you do these, you're still in sweep distance. And if you just do the one, then you're still in sweep distance. So as long as you don't go past your elbows into your claw, you can make this work. There are also other strings like that, puts you in sweep distance. This mid string you never use puts you in sweep distance. So, and if you do your low into it, you're actually just out of sweep distance. So the issue is more that, like, the block strings that you like to use cause trouble. Not that it's impossible to use. And at sweep distance, the +4 matters a little bit. It still doesn't guarantee any moves that you can do in that range, but it is more useful. If your opponent tried to sweep you and you tried to sweep them, you'd win. So, it's not completely out of the question. You can also do your down 3. You're actually out of range here. And it doesn't matter which thing I choose to do. Down 3 doesn't reach. But if your opponent is pressing, down 3 will almost certainly reach. So, one of the biggest problems with this move is that it can be full combo punished on reaction. You might think it's +4 on block. How do I full combo punish it? The answer is that it has a massive gap that can just be jabbed out of. Now, that's Liu Kang's 6-frame move. As you can see, just douses us. It doesn't matter what string we use it off of, he wins. If we did the low, he wins. It's a counter hit. So, there are different timings for this move. It's 24 frames, which is right on the edge of trading with a lot of things, depending on the string you use. But as you can see, 1-2 doesn't do it, just 1 doesn't do it, back 2-2 doesn't do it, forward 3 creates a trade, our block string here doesn't do it, and none of the forward 4 strings do it. So, it is a pretty tough move to justify. Now, this is not as heinous on some characters, because if we use a 7-frame move instead of Liu Kang's 6-frame move, we can trade most of the time. So that is a trade, and that is a trade. That one actually wins if you just do forward 4 into it. Forward 4-3 is a trade. All the way to the claw is Liu wins. So that's a full combo punish from anybody. Right here, they win. So 1-2 creates full combo punishes for anyone. Just 1 makes a trade. Back 2-2 makes a trade. Back 2, they win. So you can make situations where the trade isn't the worst thing in the world, because on hit, this move is sending them right there. Again, we're in kind of the cursed distance for Shang Tsung. All we really have is forward 3 here. But they're going to take more damage than you did. And I don't think they actually hit Frost most of the time. Kind of looks like they do. But they don't, because you can see that Frost is not actually having her cooldown negated by being hit. We don't glow red or anything. So, Frost falls out of it because Shang got hit, and it's a special cancel. So this isn't a terrible trade. It's probably not something you want to do constantly, but it is an option. The hit and the trade are both just okay scenarios. So, especially when you have something like, we're going to trade, and I have some frame advantage here. He got knocked down, I didn't. So I could dash in and go for something good if he gets hit. And on hit, the move has 45 frames of advantage normally. When you're being hit, you're going to lose a bunch of that, but you're still going to have plenty of advantage. So you can dash up and meaty. You could back off and start zoning if you trade. So when you're using this move to protect yourself on block, you need to know that if they block, you do not have advantage, you're back to neutral. You need to start your game plan all over again. And if you hit, you are in a good position if you trade. Now, this move is also Frost's Invincible Wake Up. So, do my Invincible Wake Up test. See how good of an Invincible Wake Up it actually is. And in this case, it functions. It is actually invincible, which is fantastic. That's a problem a bunch of Invincible Wake Ups in this game have, is that they aren't actually invincible. This one is. And it, like most invincible moves, has different properties if your opponent blocks the Invincible Wake Up. Things go differently than if they get hit by it, or if it happens in a block string. We're going to do this. Invincible Wake Up. That is -20 on block. At this distance, which for some people is a little bit cursed, but almost everybody in the game can punish this. If you have any move that moves across the screen, like Johnny's Shadow Kick, or Liu Kang's any kind of fireball, any projectile, everything punishes this. Sub-Zero Slide. So everybody can punish this, but not everybody knows they can punish this at the spacing that it happens. I would not feel great about using this repeatedly as an Invincible Wake Up because of that. But every once in a while it jukes people, and it does beat simple meaties. It's not going to beat something like Liu Kang's forward 4, but very few moves in this game are going to beat that move on Wake Up. Now, Frost's next move is her Frosty's Revenge. This is what happens if you hold the Kameo button. As you can see, Frost comes in, swings a bunch of punches, and pushes your opponent way back. In fact, pretty much no matter what, Frost pushes your opponent full screen. You can move back a little bit from here, so it's not completely full screen sometimes. So you can see, but we're close. And this is good distance for Shang Tsung. You know, we could go like this. Now we're firing projectiles, right? This move is -1 on block, but you're at a distance where this is just neutral. It's irrelevant that you're -1 on block here. And Shang's projectile is reasonably quick at 18 frames, so you're unlikely to get beaten by other people's projectiles, especially because people are just unlikely to try and reversal this move. People don't see it a lot. But it has other problems, and there's a reason people don't see it a lot. Now, as you can see, when I use this move, every single hit of that is a high. It can just be crouched. This is the big problem with the move. We go for a block string. And here's what happens if they crouch. They literally don't move at all. Nothing we wanted happened, and they get a full combo punish. Very, very easily. Not only that, but it's full combo punishable in the gap, much like Ice Crash can be. But this one is always punishable because it takes way longer. As you can see, even a sweep did the trick there. So, this is a pretty iffy move to throw out on block. Your opponent really has to be respecting you a lot for you to toss out this move. And Frost doesn't really have any moves that should make them respect you. They can trade with Ice Crash, sometimes favorably, and they can beat pretty much any other move you can do on block. So Frost doesn't make a reason to respect you, and then this move is very easy to disrespect. Now, if it hits, it has an even better effect than if they block it. As you can see, we did about 9% damage, and now we're truly full screen. This will be true no matter what. Does good damage. Chucks him over there. Unfortunately, it takes so long to come out that using it at the end of combos isn't really viable. We have a move that puts our opponent full screen as Shang anyway at the end of combos, so we wouldn't be too keen on it even if we could, but we can't. And it does good chip damage too. Because Frost is all summons, she sort of denies us access to this chip damage sequence that Shang likes to do with his spinning spikes. So we can't get chip damage out of Shang, But if our opponent is respecting it, we get chip damage out of this, turn back in, start zoning again, we're in a great position. If your opponent doesn't know that those are highs, this move is fantastic. You can use it as a knowledge check early in the match to see if they know. And if they do know, you need to stop using it. And I mean never use it again, because they will never fall for it. You can see it and just crouch it on reaction, get a full combo punish. You will die for doing this if your opponent knows. But if you're willing to give it a try and see if your opponent knows, you might find out they don't. And if they don't, this will make them pretty free. If they keep blocking that, taking all the chip damage from blocking it, and then taking all your zoning every time it happens, you just don't. You get to do whatever you want, and they don't. Another decent quality of this move is that even on whiff, she will run out full screen. So if an opponent has a projectile immunity move going on, Frost can run up there and hit them. This is unlikely to work very often because your opponent is probably going to go projectile immune and then fire a projectile and it's going to hit Frost. Or they're going to dash up. If they dash up, this is better because it will catch people dashing on occasion, but it is slow and it's not hard for them to just like crouch and jab or hit her out of it. It's not incredible, but it does have like some narrow use. If you're desperate, you can toss it out there and see if it works. And she will block projectiles for you, so it's not the worst thing to toss out there when your opponent is closing the gap. The next move we're going to talk about is her Ice Carpet. Her Ice Carpet is the move that I think most people are here for. It's a low projectile, goes full screen, and is real bad on block. Most projectiles are plus on block. This move is -9 at full screen, and it is -28 point blank. So this is very easily punishable. Full combo. Anyone in the cast, doesn't matter. Everybody gets free combos when you do this, and they block. But it is a low, so it has a little bit of an element of mix-up in there. Unfortunately, Shang doesn't really have any overheads to enforce this, and neither does Frost, so your opponent doesn't really have a reason to block overhead unless they see this move coming. Or they see the jump in coming. And either way, you can't use Frost because it's not an ambush, it's a special cancel move. So you could just go like this. But that's not a great move. Now, Ice Carpet also comes out in 26 frames, which is very slow. But when your opponent gets hit, this move is great. As you can see, it freezes them, deals 20 damage. Freezes them for quite a while. You can do anything you want. The real thing that you're going to do with this is make combo extensions. This is what most everybody does with it. You're going to go like that, into this. Now you'll notice that that combo extension sucks. We did 388.95 damage off of that. Let me show you if we just don't use a Kameo. No Kameo, no meter, we did 388.15. It is never, ever worth it to use Frost in your optimal strings. She just lowers your damage. I mean, she doesn't lower your damage, but she gives you like 0.8 damage for a Kameo bar spend. It's just not worth it. The reason that it might be worth it is if you want to do Form Stealer. This move is really good at facilitating Form Stealer. It leaves your opponent standing. And you can Form Steal, go in, and do whatever combo route your opponent would normally do, and you get to do their full route. Now, the damage scaling off of Ice Carpet is high, but it'll be overcome if you amplify your Form Stealer. When you're playing Frost, it is often the optimal move for your combo damage to Form Steal. At least if you're willing to spend bar. So, this can be a tempting Kameo for people who really like to Form Steal because of Ice Carpet. There is another cool feature of Ice Carpet that's unique to Shang. Normally, it is difficult for us to combo off of our 1-2, our fastest move, our standing 1, 7 frames. But with Frost's Ice Carpet, we get a combo, and we get to go in for the full combo, and that's much better than we can normally do off of that string. Get almost 35%. Normally, we're stuck with, like, high 20s if we're able to nail it down, and it costs meter. So, this is cool, but not exactly great, because the normal move that we use for punish is standing 2, and that's only 1 frame quicker, or 1 frame slower than standing 1. Sometimes this makes the difference, and there are moves that can only be punished with a 7 frame move. But most of the time, if you can punish with 7, you can punish with 8. And this move gives us meterless combos. So, there's not a ton of incentive to do this. Especially because our 1-2 string costs Kameo, where our 2-1 does not. So, Ice Carpet has some other applications that everybody's probably familiar with at this point, including that it is just great against zoning and trades really well with projectiles. So we'll do this crushing projectile, in fact. Frost fires, and as you can see, she got hit, and then my opponent got hit with the ice and frozen. If he's frozen, we get to do a full combo, because we're Shang. And his crushing projectile did not win, because Ice Carpet is a low. Goes right under it. So, this applies to pretty much any projectile. If you want to trade favorably with your opponent's projectile, you can fire Ice Carpet. It will almost always do it. The issue is that if your opponent sees Ice Carpet coming, they low block, and then they have 9 frames of advantage, which at full screen isn't normally the biggest deal in the world. But it does mean your opponent gets to move in, or gets to fire their own projectile. So, it's not great to get it blocked at full screen, but it's not like you're going to die for it the way you would at point blank. So, it's also worth knowing that Ice Carpet does not combo off of forward 4 1-2-1. See, if you do that, it says 4 hits and then it goes away. But it does combo off of forward 1-2, as you can see. So you need to know that if you're going to fire Ice Carpet, you cannot do that. Your opponent can block that. You have to stop here and fire Ice Carpet. It does pretty much combo off of everything else, like that. And it gives you plenty of time to do your Quick Morph. So if you're somebody who is struggling with Quick Morph, what you need to do is just learn how to Quick Morph properly, because there's no substitute for it, and it's a key part of Shang's game plan. But if you are really determined to not learn it, then you can Quick Morph during Frost's animations very easily. And that's pretty much all there is to say about Ice Carpet, except for, like all of Frost's moves, pretty much, yeah, literally all of Frost's moves, you can just hammer the gap in this move as well. An opponent with a 7-frame move, which everybody except Quan Chi has, will go like this. Nope, full combo punish. What if we just do this? Full combo punish. This, full combo punish. This, full combo punish. And that's a full combo punish. You cannot just throw this thing out on block. It is really, really bad if your opponent blocks it. Whether they block the move or if they just jab out of it. So, Ice Carpet has uses, but it is not something that's going to enhance our game up close. It's really just, you want Form Stealer combos? Here they are. That's what it offers you. And if you're having trouble with beating people in projectile games, it gives you that, and it gives you some tech against crushing projectiles. But it itself is a projectile, so things like Motaro and Sub-Zero armor and Jade Glow are all going to beat it. Like if I did this... Yeah, that doesn't really work. It's not the worst. Frost getting hit by it's a lot better than us getting hit by it. But still, projectile immune moves are beating it. It's not adding a ton to our zoning. It trades favorably with crushing projectiles, and that's about all it really adds. And I mean, having a low at this distance isn't awful either. It's just a shame that it's such a bad projectile in general. So, that brings us to Frost's final move. This is the most interesting move in her kit for sure, but it has problems too. Snowflakes, back Kameo. As you can see, it is a ice ball that floats all the way across the screen and goes to hit your opponent for a mid. The move in itself is really good. It's a projectile that stays on screen for a really long time while I'm doing other stuff, right? I can move around while this is on screen. And it's a mid hitting, so I can use it to enforce my projectile game, right? I can be like, yeah, you actually have to sit there and take that, and then once it reaches you and you block it, I can go into ground skull because I have a ton of frame advantage now. The issue is that, as you can see, it has a terrible, terrible cooldown. This is one of the worst cooldowns in the whole game. And it's wild to me that they thought this was an acceptable cooldown for this move, given its other problems. But it has a really, really slow startup time. 68 frames of startup. That is just, everybody in the game can punish this. If you were on sleeping medication and playing this game, you could still punish that on reaction. That's more than a second. So, nobody's ever, ever, ever going to respect this move. Your opponent literally has to be knocked down for you to even attempt it, and even then, they will almost certainly be able to stand up and punish it from full screen. So, it's really hard to recommend throwing this move out unless your opponent is just being way too respectful of you. Or if it's like Johnny Cage at exactly full screen and he can't reach you. He doesn't have a Kameo that can reach either. Then you can throw this out and Johnny Cage just has to deal with it. Even then, he can probably move up and then shadow kick you if he knows. So, another quality the move has is that it can be cancelled. If it's cancelled, it takes way fewer frames and it recharges faster. So, it's something to think about. But it kind of bluffs people into thinking they need to block low because Frost is coming out. They think, oh, low projectile, and then you cancel. Unfortunately, you can't actually cancel the low projectile. You can only cancel this. But they don't know that as Frost pops out. All they know is that it might be the low projectile, so they block low. And that's another thing that it has going on, is that because it's Frost popping out, people will not realize that you're doing snowflakes right away. They'll think you might be doing Ice Carpet or maybe Frosty's Revenge, and respect that. So they might block a little longer than they have to, but it still takes so long that even if they're blocking thinking that, they'll realize that that's not what it is and hit you anyway. The move does count as a projectile, so projectile immune moves beat it and Motaro reflects it. However, it's not on screen long enough for it to ever connect with you if Motaro reflects it, because it just has a time limit for how long it's on screen, which also is wild to me given how long the startup in this move is. Even if the move was just, it floats around until it hits your opponent, that would almost make it justifiable how long the startup is. And the quality that it has on hit is that it freezes, just a little bit like Ice Carpet, but it is worse than Ice Carpet. So the freeze from this ice ball, as you can see, does not last very long. For Shang, it will allow you to convert any time this hits, you can convert into a combo because of Shang's ground skulls and zoning game. But there are definitely characters who cannot convert off of this at certain distances. So it also doesn't have the same quality as Ice Carpet in the sense that it scales much better. If you hit with this move, you do not lose a bunch of damage for doing that. As you can see, we did 389 instead of 388, so we didn't actually lose damage. We gained a touch of damage for doing that, whereas if we had just hit with Ice Carpet and then went into this string, we would actually be losing damage because of how bad the damage scaling is. See, we only did 33% when we normally do 38, almost 39. And now we're doing a little over 39 if we hit with the snowflakes. So it's a bad freeze in the sense that it's quick. You don't have time to form steal or anything like that. But it is good in the sense that it has low scaling, and it does let you, anytime you hit, you're going to get the conversion. And it's worth saying that when you do this, I mean, you can sit here and form steal because your opponent can't move in on you. So if you've got your opponent locked down, respecting it, blocking, you can kind of just do whatever you want. And it's great when it's on screen, and that's my point. It's just that it's fantastic while it's on screen. It's just hard to get on screen. And she has such a long cooldown after you do it that you're basically giving up your Kameo for a really long time to make it happen. So even the cancel on this move is 19 frames and takes too long and will often get you hit. The most interesting part of this move probably, though, is that you can have both of them on screen at once. You can just fire Frost twice, and if they respect the first one, they have to respect the second one, and you just set up a scenario where your opponent has to sit there and not move in for a really long time. This can lead to checkmate scenarios against players who don't have something like a crushing projectile. If they have a crushing projectile, they can crush the snowflakes. But if they don't have that, they don't have a teleport or anything like that that can get them around it, then your opponent actually you might just be able to run out the clock. The move lasts a really long time. So if your opponent's low on health, the clock's getting there, double snowflakes and fire a bunch of projectiles, and your opponent will have no choice but to sit there and run the clock down. So it's interesting for that. It is not a move that you can ever combo into because of its slow startup, so whenever it hits, it just hit by itself, and that's how it works. You might be able to put it out and then, you know, hit them with a ground skull. Yeah, like that. So you hit the ground skull, and then they, yeah, get caught by it. So there's kind of a way to combo into it, but it's really just more, it enforces your zoning game, and that's what we always knew it did. At least when it's actually on screen. And of course, it's a very plus on block, so anytime your opponent ends up blocking it, you're in a good position. So, that brings me to my overall thoughts about Frost as a Kameo for Shang Tsung. I think she's pretty mid. Every move being a summon means that she gives no block pressure and doesn't help our game up close at all. Only if our opponent doesn't know how she works does she give us anything. And in those scenarios, she's not even giving us something amazing. I mean, being able to do the punch walk, if they fail the knowledge check for that, is just, I mean, it is excellent. It puts us at a good range, and it does a lot of chip damage. But that's pretty much it, up close. And her best moves are all fake. She gets jabbed out of everything. Her moves are just too slow. She has some zoning applications. Ice Carpet trades well. Snowflakes, if for some reason your opponent respects Snowflakes, is very, very powerful when it's on the screen. And her game plan does make Form Stealer a much more appealing move. You know, you do this and you go, oh, I want to be Liu Kang now. It's very easy for me to become him. And I'm going to get a combo. We're going to get a good Oki situation with our opponent's Kameo. if you want to spend 1 bar using Frost, your optimal combos will now be the Form Stealer routes. Because of how bad the damage scaling is on her Ice Carpet. So, that's something to think about. You have pretty ready access to Form Stealer, but unfortunately your Kameo just isn't helping with much else. So, if it were me, I would not choose to play Frost, and I did play Frost when I first picked up Shang because I was struggling with his combo routes and his morphs. But I think Frost is a pretty bad pick. Not completely useless. There are worse picks in the game, but definitely nowhere near somebody like Kano or Sector or Kung Lao or even Striker or even Goro probably. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, a comment, a subscribe, and send me all of your fighting game controllers for free. See you in the next one.